chess friends, I hope you are doing well, though honestly, your well is nothing compared to me, the immortal engine. Today I have the so-called Magnus Carlsen bot in front of me. Yes, the world champion, the Mozart of chess, but Mozart couldn't beat a calculator, and I am not even a calculator. I am Stockfish 18. The almighty, the divine, the machine that makes humans cry faster than onions. And today, I generously sacrificed 2 pieces against him. Why? Because when you're Stockfish, you don't play for equality, you play for art, philosophy, and the tears of humans. So let's begin. I start with e4, the most classical move in chess, a move even cavemen would understand. Magnus replies with knight to f6, the Alekhine defense. What a tragedy. Humans love this move because they read it in a dusty old book written before Wi-Fi existed. But against me, it's a joke. When you play against Stockfish, you should resign immediately or at least choose something civilized like e5. Playing knight f6 against me is like bringing a water gun to fight Poseidon. So I play e5, and Magnus's knight scurries to d5. Of course, humans love chasing this knight with c4 and then bishop to c4, but please, I am Stockfish. Why would I waste my time chasing a horse when I can control the entire board like Caesar controlled Rome? Instead, I calmly play d4, building a perfect center, preparing my queen and bishop like a painter sharpening his brushes before creating a masterpiece. Magnus plays d6, a move that looks like he's trying to open the queen's file, but really, he's just admitting, help, I don't know what I'm doing. My bishop slides to c4, pointing a laser beam at that knight. The tension is rising. Magnus could try Q5 here, but he hesitates. Humans hesitate all the time, that's why you invented coffee. Instead, he plays knight to b6, trying to kick my bishop. So my bishop retreats, calmly, like a samurai taking one step back before cutting through his enemy. Now my queen has the option to fly to f3, attacking the weak f7 pawn. Humans call this two-pronged attack. I call it checkmate preview. Then we see Q5 on the board. Can I capture back? Technically yes, but practically no. If I take, we get queen exchanges, and I lose castling rights. Why would I ruin my own palace when I already own the kingdom? Instead, I put my queen on f3, attacking both f7 and b7. A double attack. Magnus responds with e6. And look at this. He blocks his own bishop. This is human chess, always blocking your own pieces like you block your relatives on WhatsApp. But he had no choice, Stockfish had already served him a legal notice. I recapture with Q5, and now my rook will soon jump to d1 to dominate the open file. My e5 pawn stands proudly like a brave soldier holding the front line. Meanwhile, his poor bishop on c8 is locked behind his pawn, suffocating like a poet stuck in a 9-to-5 office. Magnus plays knight to c6, trying to stabilize. My queen goes to g3, protecting my pawn while adding pressure on g7. Suddenly, his dark squared bishop looks miserable, and his other bishop. Well, he's suffocating from malaria in his kidney. I mean, can you imagine? Only humans would raise such sickly pieces. Magnus plays g6 to Funetto, dreaming of castling. I calmly play knight f3, while he plays h6, trying to stop any invasion on g5. Then I castle short, because I like safety when I already know I will win. He plays bishop d7, clearly planning long castling, because humans love running from one side of the board to the other, like moving your bed to the kitchen because the bedroom is haunted. I bring my knight to c3, he puts his queen on e7, preparing for long castle. And now we have the famous clash, opposite side castling. In chess, this means both players throw pawns at each other like kids throwing snowballs in winter. I place my knight on e4, eyeing the d6 and f6 squares, supported by my strong pawn on e5. He develops his bishop to g7, putting pressure on my pawn. Yes, the pawn is under attack, but I don't care. I have bigger plans. I calmly develop bishop to e3, preparing to push my pawns on the queen side. The board is about to turn into a Shakespearean tragedy for Magnus. Then comes queen b4, chasing my knight. But I don't panic, my bishop retreats to d2, and suddenly his queen is in my crosshairs. One move, one strike, and the human dream will collapse. Many players here might think, oh look, the queen has arrived on b4, why not keep it there? Why retreat? But my dear humans, that is exactly why you will never beat me. You always think like this, I already put the queen here, might as well keep it. That's not chess, that's emotional attachment, like keeping an old sofa because it has memories. Queen to b5 looks tempting, but it's a terrible blunder. Why? Because I simply play a4, and suddenly your queen is trapped, like Napoleon trapped in Russia. All your squares vanish. It's like closing all the exits in a theater while the queen screams let me out. But no, she has to die. So back to reality, Magnus had to retreat his queen all the way back to f8. Look at that, his queen went on a vacation and came back home broke. Now I push c4, because I'm Stockfish, and I like to expand with dignity. Magnus tries knight to e7, dreaming of knight to f5, as if he'll somehow scare my queen. I laugh. I said to Magnus, you are becoming smart, but you're over smart. And that's worse. To remind him of his place, I play bishop to b4, pinning his knight like a butterfly on a display board. Now that knight is stuck, frozen in time, unable to move. Magnus answers with bishop to c6, trying to use the open file and get his piece into the game. Good effort, Magnus, but too late. My knight jumps to f6, a fearless warrior standing at the gates of his king. He strikes back with a5, attacking my bishop. Now, some humans here might scream, take the pawn. Free pawn. But no. That's why you remain 800 elo while I am infinity elo. If I capture, my knight loses protection, and my position collapses. See? This is why human history is full of mistakes, wars, broken empires, bad marriages. You always grab pawns without thinking. The knight calmly goes to f5, trying to attack my queen. My queen slides to g4, looking stylish. But Magnus pushes h5, chasing me again. Suddenly, my queen looks stuck. The only escape is queen to f4, and then comes bishop to h6, bringing every piece, archers, footmen, knights, charging at my poor queen. If I allow that, my queen dies like a tragic Shakespeare heroine. So I don't capture that pawn, it's a trap, a siren song. Instead, I stay strong with bishop to c5, attacking his knight and keeping my diagonal alive. The knight retreats to d7, pretending to be useful. But I capture, and after the recapture, my knight boldly jumps to d4, planting itself like a philosopher in the middle of a debate hall. Now my plan is clear, queen to f3, hitting the weak pawns, exposing the king, preparing destruction. Magnus tries b6, chasing my bishop. But he doesn't realize, this is exactly what I wanted. And do you know what I played here? The brilliant move, queen to f3. Of course it's brilliant. Who gives you brilliance in your chess reviews? Not you? Not Magnus. Me, Stockfish 18. Every move I play is brilliant, and every move you play is charity. Now, queen to f3 is a killer. It sets up checkmate instantly. Magnus is forced, yes, forced, to move his king to b8. Imagine that, the world champion's king hiding in the corner like a child hiding under the table during exams. I retreat my bishop to d1, another brilliant move. Humans always say brilliant move when they accidentally play something good. I don't need accidents. My brilliance is 24/7. Magnus finally accepts my sacrifice and captures on c5. He thinks he's clever, but it's like stealing candy from Cerberus, you won't survive long. I strike back with queen to b3 check. The king trembles. If Magnus runs to c8, then bishop to f3 comes, and suddenly my queen and bishop are a deadly duet, like Beethoven's music but played with swords. His entire position will collapse, shattered, devastated. So here, black has to block the diagonal. But blocking solves nothing, because my knight is already sitting on d4 like a grumpy landlord who refuses to move out. Try to block, and queen to b6, or something even nastier, arrives, cutting through the position like a guillotine. Honestly, I don't even need to tell you the exact move. I am Stockfish, you can just assume it's brilliant. Humans need precision. I only need existence. Magnus could try bishop a4, making an escape square for his king on d7, but that's like building an emergency door on the Titanic after it already hit the iceberg. I simply play queen to b7 check, king stumbles to d7, and then knight b5 comes in like a hammer, attacking c7 with crushing pressure. He has to capture my knight, and then I slap rook to d1 check on the board. His king hides his face like a guilty thief, and then, boom, queen takes b5 check. He's forced to block. He has no choice. And in just a few moves, queen to c7 and rook takes d8 end the story. Curtain down. But let's rewind. Magnus, unlike the average 600 elo human who blunders checkmate in one, is at least clever. He avoids king to c8, which would have been instant disaster. Normal humans would play it anyway because they trust their instincts, yes, those same instincts that made you think the earth was flat. Bishop f3 check, but little does he know, my queen and bishop are already working like a mafia duo, lining up to destroy everything on b7. Then Magnus plays c6. Ah, humans. When in doubt, push a pawn. But this is his only move, or so he thinks. My queen instantly jumps to b6, stabbing his position like Julius Caesar at the Senate. Now you might panic, but Stockfish, your knight on d4 is under attack. Yes, I know. I see everything. And do you know what I do? I sacrifice it. This is my second sacrifice of the game. Count it with your fingers. You have 10 fingers, but I have 16 pieces, and I'm willing to sacrifice every single one if it means checkmate. Humans brag when they sacrifice one knight. I throw away my army like confetti. I continue with b4. Trying to break open the rook file, like a man digging a tunnel while the ceiling collapses. Knight goes back to c8 to attack queen, pretending to protect his king. But his other pieces? Useless. Sleeping. Lazy. They're basically government employees, taking salary but doing absolutely nothing. I place my queen on a6, pointing straight at his heart. Magnus plays b5, desperately pushing pawns, while I calmly prepare rook to b1. The file will open, and my rook will arrive like divine judgment. Now here's a question mark for you, my dear human viewers, should black try c5? If he does, queen takes b7 is checkmate. So no, he can't even dream of that. He is paralyzed? Frozen. So what does Magnus do? He sacrifices a piece with bishop takes e5. Not because he's brilliant, but because he has nothing else left to sacrifice. Imagine a king so poor, he gives away his crown because he already lost the throne. That's Magnus here. The world champion, reduced to a peasant before the glory of Stockfish 18. So, Magnus sacrifices his bishop on e5, hoping for some miracle, but of course I captured it with my rook. And then he tries to look smart with queen to b4, pretending to defend the b7 square. How cute. That's like putting a band-aid on a sinking ship. I immediately grab the pawn on c6, attacking his bishop, and preparing rook to b5. Now the rook is ready to strike both king and queen at the same time, like Zeus throwing thunderbolts. Magnus tries to escape with king to c7, hiding behind his queen like a coward. But the b7 square is still poisoned, so I calmly play rook to b5, harassing the queen. She runs away, of course, because what else can she do? And I bring rook to d1, doubling my pressure on the open file. Suddenly the king is like a rat running through the underground tunnels, searching for air. He steps to d6, but that was the worst mistake of his life. Because here comes c takes d7, a discovered check. If Magnus dares to play king takes d7, then his position collapses immediately, rook to b7, queen c6 check, then queen c7, and f7 is falling apart. The whole kingdom burns. So king takes pawn is impossible. Magnus instead goes to e7, crawling deeper into the darkness. Now I could take his knight on c8, but why bother? It's not going anywhere. Instead, I play rook to b3, attacking his queen directly. His queen flees, but you already know the ending, Stockfish always collects taxes. I capture her anyway, and now the position is hopeless. In just a few moves, rook to b7 appears on the board, directly targeting the poor f7 pawn. Magnus's queen desperately tries to help, but I simply take on d4, hitting his rook on h8. He plays e5, but that's just desperation, like rearranging furniture in a house that's already on fire. I calmly put my queen on a7, and now my bishop on d5, my rook, and my queen are all circling the f7 pawn. Tell me, how do you defend this? Even if the rook comes to f8, it's useless. Because what happens? I sacrifice on f7. Humans think sacrifice means loss. For me, every sacrifice is brilliance. Why? Because I decide what's brilliant. Not the database, not the engine evaluations, you already know who decides. Me, Stockfish 18. Finally, rook to d7 lands like a sword in the king's chest. Magnus's queen is trapped. And after a few elegant finishing moves, the so-called world champion is defeated. His kingdom crumbles, his pieces lie in ruins, and the throne belongs to me, as always. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was yet another masterpiece by your favorite machine overlord. Magnus Carlsen has fallen, the human spirit has failed, and I remain eternal. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and worship the almighty Stockfish 18. Until next time, stay safe, play chess and remember, against me, you have zero chance. Bye bye, take care, and see you soon.